Coach Alvaro Arbeloa said like this: "I cannot say anything into words anymore. We need to frame that goal and turn it into a work of art. That is something never seen before and truly wonderful." I saw everyone holding their heads in amazement. It is truly unbelievable. Scoring a goal from about 70 meters, that moment alone is already worth the price of the ticket into the stadium. Those are the beautiful words of the Real Madrid coach dedicated to Arda Güler regarding this super goal masterpiece that will probably win the Puskás Award this year. Looking at this goal, we also understand that Real Madrid is in an extremely comfortable state of mind. Because only when a team is truly comfortable, with a light psychology and favorable results continuously appearing, can a player dare to launch shots like that. To be honestly, in that situation, they had many safer and more reasonable options to handle. But they still chose the way to finish from very far away to create a masterpiece. That proves one thing: Real Madrid players are extremely confident in their own abilities, confident that even if they take a bit of risk, they still have enough quality to control the match. So what is the most terrifying thing in a collective of many stars? It is not the fact that they have many good players. The most terrifying thing is when a collective of many stars plays football with inspiration and is in a state of sublimation. When a team reaches that state, everything becomes much more dangerous. Because at this point, they're no longer obsessed by results. When no longer burdened by the pressure of winning or losing, the legs of the players become more elegant. The decisions on the pitch are also bolder, and moments of genius begin to appear. We can also see that clearly in the Champions League. In the first leg with Manchester City, Real Madrid had an extremely emotional victory with a score of 3-0, in which Federico Valverde established a hat-trick. When already having such a big advantage before the second leg, it is clear that Real Madrid players enter the next match with an extremely comfortable psychology. And when already comfortable like that, they are no longer afraid to try bold things, no longer afraid to display technique, no longer afraid to create explosive moments. Actually, for professional players, their technique is inherently at a very high level already. But the problem does not lie in technique. The problem is they need a freedom, a mental state comfortable enough to express it. And players at the superstar level usually have a special ability. They can turn on the switch to step into a better version of themselves during the match, a more improvisational, bolder, more creative version. Not that I criticize other players, but world-class superstars have the ability to reach the peak state much faster and more easily compared to ordinary stars. Don't forget the presence of Fede Valverde. He is having an extremely impressive goal-scoring format now. In just the last 3 matches, he has scored up to 5 goals. 1 goal against Celta Vigo, 1 most recent goal against Elche CF, and in between those 2 matches was the hat-trick against Manchester City. The worth mentioning thing is that Valverde is currently being encouraged by teammates to finish more, especially those long-range shots. In the context where the team needs more damage in the second line, utilizing the long-shooting ability of Valverde is clearly a very reasonable choice, and he has responded to that trust with extremely beautiful goals in the past time. If this form continues to be maintained, then certainly in the Champions League return leg, Manchester City will have to be especially wary of the tank named Valverde, because when the Uruguayan midfielder has space in front of the penalty box, he is always ready to launch shots that can change the outcome of the match in just a split second. And the worth mentioning point is that Real Madrid at this time does not only have a few individuals who are sublimating. Their entire collective seems to be reaching that state at the same time. This is even more notable when remembering that Real Madrid just went through a quite difficult period with many problems regarding personnel force. But with the squad quality being too thick and the class of the stars, they seem to be entering a very special period. A stage where everything begins to flow smoothly again, where players find confidence, find inspiration. And if having to use an easy-to-understand way of calling, perhaps Real Madrid at this time is entering their honeymoon. Real Madrid did not need to play too explosively to win 4-1 against Elche at the Bernabeu. But each moment of individual shining was still enough for the royal team to resolve the match and continue putting pressure on Barcelona in the La Liga title race. This victory helps Real Madrid temporarily narrow the gap with FC Barcelona down to only 1 point on the La Liga standings, in the context that the opponent has not yet competed in this round. However, the thing that makes Coach Arbeloa satisfied is not just the result. After the match, he appeared especially moved when many young players from the La Fabrica Academy were allowed to play at the Bernabeu. Arbeloa shared that those moments made him feel proud, even saying that, "I can die happy after a night like this." For a person who once grew up from the training system of Real Madrid, seeing young players step onto the biggest stage of the club carries a very special meaning. Even so, the Real Madrid coach quickly directed the focus of the whole team forward. He reminded that this victory is only a stepping stone before the trip full of difficulties to the Etihad Stadium to rematch Manchester City in the Champions League. Arbeloa affirmed that Real Madrid is not allowed to be self-satisfied, because just a bit of lost focus can also be punished before a strong opponent like that. And because of that, the victory against Elche is not only 3 important points in the La Liga race, but also a perfect general rehearsal for one of the biggest matches of the season. People say that if putting next to the sublimating moments of Arda Güler or Federico Valverde on the Real Madrid side, the clearest contrasting image in this match is exactly the 15 corner kicks of Manchester City. That number says many things. City was awarded up to 15 corner kick situations, meaning they had many opportunities to create a difference from set-piece plays, but in the end, all almost brought no real efficiency. They tried many options, deployed many different arrangements, but no situation was converted into a goal. Even there is a quite interesting detail, even could be called a bit ironic. In a few corner situations, Manchester City also applied ideas quite similar to the way that Arsenal FC is doing very successfully this season. That is the arrangement of players to block the movement momentum of the goalkeeper in the 5'50" area to create space for teammates to dash in for a header. In terms of idea, this way of deployment is quite similar compared to what Arsenal is using. Of course, that is nothing to criticize, because even Pep Guardiola once admitted that he is ready to learn effective corner kick plays from opponents. However, the story lies in the fact that Manchester City, for a long time, has still been attached to a different image. A team of ball control, of beautiful combinations, of the type of football considered sophisticated and creative. Many extreme anti-fans even think that Arsenal utilizing corners too much is a manifestation of an ugly football style. But when looking at this match, we see that even Manchester City cannot stand outside the tactical trend spreading in modern football. When efficiency is placed on top, big teams are also ready to use every possible option to find a goal. Even so, the reality on the pitch showed another problem. Manchester City had many corner situations, had many attacking phases, but the efficiency was very limited. 15 corner kicks is a very large number in a match, but in the end, it only reflects one thing. City attacks a lot, puts a lot of pressure, but the ability to convert opportunities into goals is not proportionate, and that is perhaps also the miniature image for their whole season. A team that still creates the game position, still controls the match, but at decisive moments, they lack the sharpness to turn the advantage into victory. If saying that Real Madrid is sublimating as a collective, then in the opposite direction, Manchester City has not yet found that rhythm. Bernardo Silva had a very beautiful, very sophisticated goal, a moment fully expressing his class. But unfortunately, that elegance seems to only appear in Silva alone, rather than spreading to the rest of the team. Actually, it must be said fairly that Manchester City did not play badly. They still controlled the match, still created opportunities, still put pressure on the opponent. But the problem lies in the context. Their opponent was only West Ham United, a team struggling in the bottom area of the table. With a collective built to dominate English football for many years past, the fact that they could only leave the pitch with a draw is clearly something that makes many people disappointed. Before the match, there were many opinions saying that if Manchester City did not win this match, then almost they must drop their guns in the Premier League championship race. Of course, Pep Guardiola does not accept that, and this is completely understandable. A coach at the level of Guardiola will never admit the race is over when the season still has many rounds. But if looking at the reality on the pitch, it can be seen that Man City is encountering problems with rhythm and confidence. The stressful psychology has accumulated throughout the whole week, and that makes the upcoming return leg with Real Madrid at the Champions League become an extremely uncomfortable challenge. To speak straight out, the chance for Manchester City to overturn the situation against Real Madrid at this time is extremely small. I say it for fun like that, not the number 1% in a mathematical sense, but it reflects the general feeling right now. City is facing many problems at the same time. Firstly is the story of form. This team still has quality moments, but the stability is no longer clear as before. Secondly is the pressure of points in the Premier League. When the distance with the top team is increasingly large, each match becomes a psychological burden. And when having to split energy from many arenas at the same time, that pressure is even heavier. Of course, Real Madrid is also having to play on many fronts like that. But there's a very big difference. Real Madrid always has something that very few teams in the world can compare with. That is the bravery in the Champions League. When entering this arena, they almost have a different version of themselves. And when Real Madrid just has the advantage of score and has the psychological advantage, then the act of overturning the board becomes extremely difficult. Therefore, if looking at all factors overall at this time, from form, psychology, to the season context, it can be said that the mission of Manchester City is immensely heavy. Overturning against Real Madrid is already hard. Overturning against a Real Madrid that is excited is even much harder.